what my mom wanted for me was to be ladylike, and ladies did not show other people their underpants. That was just kind of the rule. I don't know what my mom would say today about underpants being worn as the main part of an outfit with high heels. You should be ashamed of yourself. Really? I don't think so. Today we're going to talk about shame and feeling shame and why you feel shame and 3 tips on how to lessen it, because shame is pervasive. Other people shame us, we shame ourselves, and we're going to talk about what to do about it, okay? So we're going to cover where it comes from. I'm going to share some stories with you that I've never told anybody before because I was so ashamed. And then we're going to move into things that have worked for me that I know have worked for other people. Let's go. When I think about when I feel shame, I can figure out 3 kinds of shame that I feel. I know there are more, but I want to talk about 3 today. The first kind of shame is the shame that I've carried with me since childhood. When we're little kids, things happen and we hear things from our parents and from our family, and those kind of sink into our brain, and they can be way underneath. They sort of ache under there, and it can be an excavation to find them. I mean, it's kind of a gross analogy, but sometimes I think that shame is kind of like those pimples that never come up so you can do anything about them. They're just down there aching. So we're going to talk about that first kind of shame that comes from our parents and our childhood. The second kind of shame is that shame that comes from our friends, our foes, the kind of shame that starts really to get big in middle school and high school when kids are not really in charge of their brains yet and can say really mean things. And now with social media, those mean things can be amplified. And so those messages are really tough. Those are the messages that come in young adulthood, and those are a big source of shame and pain, really sharp pain. Those ones hurt quickly, and they hurt a lot, and they're intended to hurt, unlike the childhood messages that can be well-intentioned, but just things that don't get processed. The third kind of shame is the shame we feel when we've let ourselves down. Where it's like, I could have done that better. I should have done that better. And that one takes a little work too, because there's some difference between letting yourself down and feeling shame around that and being a perfectionist, which means that you feel shame always because you can't ever achieve it. So today we're just going to talk about garden variety shame of letting yourself down. And then we'll get to some tips. My childhood story, this is one of many, but I remember when I was a little girl. So I want to say I was in 2nd grade. And when I went to school, we dressed to go to school. And I wore dresses with skirts that poofed out and petticoats and cotton panties with flowers on them. And, we kind of got dressed up to go to school. There were no jeans, there were no pants, there were no sneakers. It was an outfit. And on the playground in the little kid section, which is where I was hanging out, there was a bar. And the thing you could do on that bar is climb up on it, hook your knees over it, and then hang by your knees. I think it was called hanging by your knees. I don't know, do people still do that? You'll have to tell me. And I loved it because you'd kind of swing back and forth and it felt very daring, and I had this sense of body autonomy. It was so great until my mom found out that I was hanging by my knees, and I got what in my mind sticks as this big lecture about being ladylike. A lot of what my mom wanted for me was to be ladylike, And ladies did not show other people their underpants. That was just kind of the rule. I don't know what my mom would say today about underpants being worn as the main part of an outfit with high heels. Anyway, I was not supposed to swing by my knees. And I remember the shame of that very distinctly because I was shamed that I was supposed to feel shamed about hanging by my knees. And I was shamed because sometimes I did it anyway and lied to my mom and told her I didn't. So it was kind of shame if you do and shame if you don't, which is kind of a classic about childhood shame, right? So that's one source of shame. That is the one at the top there, parents. I'm curious if you have any old stories about when you were a little kid you feel like you want to share. Just to yourself, think about what's a moment that taught me shame, because that kind of childhood shame can grow and spread. For me, being ashamed about my underpants led to sort of a total shame about my body and body autonomy and clothing choices. So think about, what are your first shames? The second one, about the shames that come when you get a little older and you're in junior high school and high school. What a tough time that is. I don't need to tell you that. This one is totally cringe. And I had to think, I was ashamed to share this with you because it's so cringe. And in fact, I've never told Pop-Pops this one because it's so yuck. I was in high school and there was a guy in high school named Bill Klinkenbeard. I remember him very distinctly because he had blue eyes and black hair, kind of the Patrick Dempsey combo. Do you know him? He's kind of old, but I've always thought, that was such a great look. And we were in the hall one day, and for whatever reason, Bill reached into my purse, which I now think he should have been ashamed of. So I am prone to respiratory infections, and I probably had bronchitis at the time, and my cough was, the correct medical term is productive. I was coughing stuff up. Oh, that's so gross. Sometimes when it gets bad, I announce that I'm coughing up frogs. So I had been coughing up frogs into my dainty ironed embroidered handkerchief, and it was like yuck sitting in my purse. And he put his hand in my purse and he touched it and he looked at me, and there was a crowd there, right? And he said, "What is that?" It's like, oh, please, God, take me now. I just thought I was going to explode from shame. Thinking about it now is shameful because any body product was shameful. And the fact that I was coughing stuff up was shameful. And the fact that the cutest boy in class knew I was coughing was shameful. It's like, oh, shame, shame, shame. The fact that I'm telling you is shameful. I have to think about, oh, is this performative? Blah, 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 blah. That's the second source of shame, which is social shame. And that stuff is all the way through high school, and it continues into college. Now, one thing I can tell you before we get to the tips and techniques is that I am the answer to that kind of shame, because I was shamed so much for so many things and I made it through it. So part of what you can take heart in is, here I am. It didn't kill me. It made me stronger. The same thing can happen for you. It is possible to take these shames and use them as tools. I promise, here I am. I'm living proof that you can get through it, even disgusting moments like the one I just shared with you. So the third kind of shame is when we disappoint ourselves. And this is one that I haven't shared broadly either because, oh, it hurts so bad. A former boss of mine got me a speaking engagement, and I was just starting to do speaking engagement for fees. And so it was a big deal. It was a business audience. It was in Chicago. And I was terrified of doing it. That was where I felt like I didn't have anything to say. All of my stuff about not being worthy kicked in. I couldn't do it perfectly. I just blocked. I could not get prepared for the speech. And so the day came, I was getting ready to go on. I remember, there's no way to say it, just hurling repeatedly in the ladies' room before I went on because I was so terrified. My body was doing everybody out. I got up on stage. I talked for a little while because I had like 3 notes, and I don't even know how I covered. And then I waited and they gave me nice applause because I was clearly a terrified young woman, and I escaped. And my ex-boss called and was furious, which he should have been. And I was furious with me because I had let myself down so badly. It hurt so much. That's one of the worst. And that's one where I can tell you that shame can be productive. On this one, before I get to the tips, the end of this story is I ended up being one of the highest paid women on the speaking circuit, the corporate speaking circuit. Now, I say one of the highest paid women because there was really a big differential between what the guys were paid by the big speaking agencies, what they could get for guys, and what they could get for women. But still, I did very well. And one reason I did very well is that I never wanted that to happen again. So I prepared like a maniac. That was a good use of shame. Now that I've told you shameful secrets about myself, remember that if you want to share some shameful secrets, do it in a safe place. If you want to direct message me, that's fine. Be careful about posting anything because I don't want you to be vulnerable and hurt. The point of this is to be vulnerable and use this to become more powerful. Okay, so the 3 tips. First tip is shame hates sunlight. Anything you drag into the sunlight yourself, you take control of and you can't be ashamed of. You're just out there doing what you're going to do and being who you are. And I think about examples we've seen that are very powerful. I remember the first time I saw someone use a baby bump as something beautiful that should be decorated, right? Now you see baby bumps decorated all the time. Baby bumps highlighted as part of an outfit. A baby bump is nothing to be ashamed of. In fact, now that I think about it, the first pregnant woman I ever saw use her pregnancy as art was Demi Moore, who did a cover, I'm not sure which magazine, if you remember, tell me, where she was just, bare ass naked, to put it politely, and her whole body was painted. She must have been about 8 months pregnant, and she was like, here I am I not beautiful? Talk about converting shame into beauty. I think that's so cool. I just love that. The second point, that tip actually I can offer you, is just 2 words. A friend of mine told me about this, and it turns out to be so great. The 2 words are let them. That was what she used to meditate for a couple of years. And I started doing it too. So that works for things like, my friends all went out to lunch, but they didn't invite me. Should I feel ashamed? Should I feel rejected? Should I feel bad? Well, what if I just think, let them. People are talking about me because they don't like that I'm this or that or the other. That's okay. Let them. Let them. Let them. Is that like the greatest, coolest meditation? You can just sort of stop all of the mental stuff about, why are they doing that? Why are they saying that about me? Why are they behaving in a way that, triggers me and makes me feel bad? Doesn't really matter. You can let go of that. And the way you can let go of that is to say, let them do whatever they're going to do. Your job is you. My job is me. Let them. The third tip is one that takes some effort. It's a daily challenge, but that is reprogramming our self-talk. Sometimes when people tell me things about themselves, they'll be talking about themselves in such a mean way. They will say things about themselves that are self-shaming. I'm too fat. I'm too thin. I'm in terrible shape. I don't make great grades. I don't, the people I hang out with are kind of sucks. Their conversation about themselves reflects what they're saying to themselves about themselves, and it's not good. So the challenge is, maybe once a day, can you notice what you're saying to yourself about yourself? And can you do your own karate and flip that, right? So let's take an obvious one for me, and you can do it for you. Like, I can think, oh, I have wrinkles. They're going to see my wrinkles. I do think that. I can flip that to, I have wrinkles. They're going to see my wrinkles. And that's really cool because that means I've got the years put in to be helpful and leave a legacy. You can always find a way to take your negative self-talk and make it positive, even if you don't believe it. Just practice flipping a negative into a positive, and you do it enough times and you can convince yourself of the positive. It really works. I do it for myself. So I'm just touching quickly on shame today. We've been doing a series, and we'll be doing more, on the ways we all show that we don't think we're so great, the things we struggle with, like perfectionism, feeling like a fraud, not feeling good enough in one way or another. If you like, there are other videos. I think there will be a link here to point you to some of the videos I've done. And now we're getting to a shameful moment for me. So I'm always ashamed when I have to ask for something. You can see I'm probably blushing. And I'm practicing. So I'm asking you, would you subscribe to my channel? Now I feel like I'm ashamed. I want to justify it. I feel negative about myself. I'm actually in this moment feeling shame. So let's see if I can turn it around and say, wow, I'm really proud of the work I'm doing to make your life richer. I would love it if you would subscribe. Would you please? Thank you so much.